Thanks everyone for joining us on our last day of Pubtelligence sessions. Today we have some folks from Chrome Unboxed here to kind of talk about some things that they've been doing during the past few months, and with all the world changes and the pandemic and things going on. So they're here to kind of just share their success stories, really. But I'll go ahead and let you guys kind of take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much. So we've got the whole crew here, and we wanted to start with the three of us. So we are the three business partners and the three owner-operators for Chrome Unboxed, and we generate most of the content, 99% of the content. So wanted to start off with just kind of introducing these guys. I'll do the main presentation, but my name's Joe Humphrey. We've got Robbie Payne and Gabriel Bringer. So Robbie started Chrome Unboxed on his kitchen floor, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But yeah, so we appreciate Ezoic inviting us to do this. We really do consider Ezoic to be a part of our team. So we're a small team, and they're an extension of that. So we really appreciate them letting us come in here and do this. So guys, get out of here. Let me do my presentation.
We're gonna slide out.
So those guys will come back when we do our Q&A. So don't turn the lights off. All righty. So let's hop right in here. So this is going to be a little different for me because I've done a lot of presentations, but I'm normally used to being able to walk around and pace. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work out. I'm going to try to stay still, but we've got some slides here queued up. And as we just said, the guys are going to come back at the end and answer any and all questions. So I've got a pretty straightforward presentation to go through some of the things that we've done, some of the things that we had in place, and then so a couple of things that you all can do, you all can take and learn from these and apply these to your website and your business. And then we've got a couple of specific examples of content that we generated, things that we did that kind of helped us respond to the pandemic. You know, I guess one thing first and foremost, I mean, I know that it is it's a crazy time. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now. And, you know, we don't want to come off like we've capitalized on this thing or anything. We had some things in place and we were able to respond to it. And I think still provide some really good value to our readers and to our audience. So at the end of the day, that's what's most important to us. And we've just been really fortunate that through all of this, we've been successful. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to preface everything with that. Obviously, I know that there's a lot of people in the world right now that are struggling and crazy things going on. So we're just fortunate, and yeah, so let's hop right in. So hopefully this works. All right, here we go. I'm using Prezi Video for the very first time. I hope that all of this works. So growing a website during a pandemic. Again, you know, we did grow pretty significantly during the pandemic. Things have leveled out a little bit, but our highest traffic month that we've ever had was in April. So we're going to get into some of those specifics here in a minute. But like I said, today I want to talk about a few of the things that we have in place, a couple of the structural things that we've done with our website, and then move into a couple specific examples that you all can apply to your websites. So like I said, when the guys were over here, we are a very small team, and we have an intern now. We are in the process now of maybe hiring a staff writer or two maybe. So all of this, I think, is applicable to a lot of websites out there. I mean, obviously, you're big companies who have, you know, loads and loads of writers. Some of these things may not be as applicable, but I think for anybody who's trying to grow their website, who's, you know, maybe a small to medium-sized publisher, I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today can be useful. So let's hop into the intro. So from the kitchen floor. And yeah, as I said, Robbie started Chrome Unboxed in 2013, literally on his kitchen floor. So we've got a photo here. This was of his first video. And look at that shot. Such a great shot. Always give him crap because, I mean, it was literally a Nexus 7 tablet. I think he was holding it. I don't even think he had a tripod. And he made a video and put it up on the internet. And that was partially because he was buying and reviewing kind of tech on his own and just buying different products and testing them out, and had a friend who was like, you need to put some of this stuff on YouTube. So he did it. He put one out on his personal channel. It actually, up until recently, it was one of the highest viewed videos that we had, but it was on his personal channel, so we couldn't monetize it at all. But it was still some good content that was out there, and it was the Chrome Unbox brand getting out there. But we started on the kitchen floor, and we were a YouTube channel for about 3 or 4 years. So that was 2013. Going into 2015, 2016, honestly, Robbie was getting to the point where he was thinking about kind of throwing in the towel. Chrome OS was in a weird spot, and he wasn't sure what was going to happen. But he started hearing some things about Android apps coming to Chromebooks, and he thought, wow, this could be a big game changer. This could be something that could kind of shift the operating system and open it up to more people. And so in 2016, the website at that point, chromeunbox.com, was just a place for the YouTube channel to put the YouTube videos. So in 2016, he approached Gabriel and said, hey, I'm hearing these things about what's coming to Chrome OS. Let's maybe just start writing some articles and putting them on the website. So that's what they did, and actually saw some, I guess just because the brand was already out there were already people familiar with Chrome Unboxed. There was a pretty good readership kind of built in. So they saw some good growth right there at the very beginning. Around that same time, Robbie and I were working together for a marketing firm here in town, and I had approached him, and I'd been watching YouTube videos, Marquez Brownlee and different people on YouTube. And I was like, Robbie, we can make better YouTube videos. We can put out some better content. And so we started making YouTube videos and using the gear that we had. We were borrowing some gear from the marketing firm we were using. And it was a side hustle. It was a side hustle for almost 3 years, really. And I think that side hustle really kind of created a certain mentality for us. And I put MVP down there. If no one's familiar with that, that's minimally viable product. And that is kind of a startup thing, but rather than trying to build the all out perfect solution for something, you just use what you have and you put out something that is working and it's good, and you can put it out there and go ahead and start trying to get some traffic. And so that's what we did. And it created a certain ethos around our company and kind of the way that we approach things. So what is our mission statement? Good content often. And I know that sounds simple, but it applies to everything that we do. We have a website, we have our YouTube channel, we have a podcast, and we maintain obviously all of our social media channels. And, in everything that we do, we're always trying to have good content and put it out often. And those two things have to go together. If we're putting out a bunch of content, but it's crappy stuff, I mean, that's not gonna get us the results that we want. And if we're putting out really, really great stuff, but we're only publishing once a day or every other day, or only putting out a video once a month, we're probably not going to have the same engagement and the same traffic that we could have if we were putting out more often. So, as we kind of get into some of the specific things that we've done, kind of keep this in mind. Good content often. If you can create really good content and put it out often, I think you'll be successful. So, content is king. I think probably anybody that is watching this, anybody that is a publisher or interested in this stuff probably knows this. But I've worked for a marketing firm for many years, and we were always telling clients content is king. And if you can create really good content and put it out there for people, and if you have enough of a niche, and if you have enough things to say, most likely there's going to be people that are going to be interested in that. And for us, it was kind of the right time at the right place, and we had been working to build Chrome Unboxed, and our content has kind of evolved over time. Now, like I said, it started as the YouTube channel, we grew into the website, and then we've started a podcast and some other things. So what is our website? So let's hop in here. I'm going to try to kind of zoom into these so you all can see them a little bit better. So our website, if you go to chromeunbox.com, you'll see that it is a very clean and simple design. And that's all credit to Robbie. Robbie is a web developer by trade, and he has built all of our website from the ground up. And, it is maybe not as flashy as some other websites that you might see out there, but it's clean, and it allows us to serve up ads in a good way. And I think that we've had folks even at Azoic say that they've used our website as a reference when people are asking about website design. So we're really proud of our website, but having that really clean and simple design has, I think, been a an ingredient for us to our success. So one of the other kind of very specific things here that I want to get into is AMP. So AMP is basically, if you're in your Google Discover, if you're familiar with Google Discover on Android phones, if you swipe left, it's kind of the curated news feed for Google. You know, they aren't in the social space. This is kind of their social media type thing that they do. And AMP is essentially a kind of stripped down version of your site that can be presented in Google Discover, and Google really likes AMP. And so for us, getting into Google Discover has been a very, very large portion of our traffic. It ranges anywhere from probably 80 to 90% of our traffic. And we're trying to do some things to actually diversify that a little bit. But AMP has been a big part of our success up until this point. And how did we get AMP? And what can you all do to get AMP if you don't have AMP? Well, first and foremost, we are built on WordPress. So our entire website is ran on WordPress.org, so the self-hosted version of WordPress. And at this point in time, I haven't seen the latest figures, but I think it's somewhere around 40% of website traffic or websites on the web right now are powered by WordPress. And so that means that there's a ton of resources out there. There's a ton of people putting in work and building plugins and building different resources for WordPress that you can then go and use on your website. And one of those for us has been AMP for WP. Now, this is a kind of separate company. These are a separate group of people outside of WordPress and Google. There actually is a WordPress, Google AMP certified whatever plugin that you can use. And we've actually found that the AMP for WP is much better, and we've had a lot more success with it. And we can get into those specifics here in a little bit. And Robbie knows the ins and outs of that way more than I do. And I just know that we are in AMP, and when we're in AMP, we're getting traffic. And when it shows up in our analytics, it'll show up as a /AMP. So we can even see the articles that are performing in AMP. And like I said, normally it's the bulk of our traffic. So that's the first thing. I think getting into Discover, if you're not getting into Discover, that's something that I think all publishers should be focusing on. And the way that we do that, the way that we get our content onto Discover is through AMP for WP using this plugin. So the other thing that we do, and this is still something that is evolving and that we're still learning about, and it's constantly kind of changing, is Search Console. So if you're not familiar with Search Console, this is basically a dashboard where you can go to see how your website is getting indexed, and if you have any errors with your content, and if there's things on your site that Google doesn't like, that they're throwing a warning or they're giving you an error for something, that you can see those and address those so that Google can crawl your website better and put your content out on Discover and out on the web more easily and show up in search results better. And different things like we were just working with Tyler from Azoic to figure out how to get included in some of the kind of question and answer stuff that you see in Google. And so getting into Search Console and really digging into Search Console, I think, is something that's really important. And we are in there checking that constantly to make sure that we don't have any errors. We actually had a plugin for our video player that we use on the site that was throwing an error. That was, I don't even know, the developer guys can tell you, Robbie and Gabe can tell you way more about it. But we were getting an error because of this ARVE plugin that we were using, and it was throwing off our AMP traffic, and it was throwing off everything. And we had to get into Search Console and figure out what was going on. So if you're not familiar with Search Console, you need to go get educated on Search Console. I think every publisher needs to know about Search Console and needs to be utilizing that to grow their website. So the next thing is hosting. And I know this sounds kind of basic and simple, but having a good hosting partner, a good hosting vendor is really important for a successful website. So whenever you're serving up content to people, you can think of your hosting as the file cabinet for your files on the web. And when someone puts in your URL, for us, when they go to chromeunbox.com, where are those files coming from? We've worked with a company now for a couple years, and we pay a premium for it. We pay way more than some of your kind of cookie cutter solutions that are out there where you're paying $10 a month or something. We're paying a premium for this hosting, and we think that it's worth it because our page load speeds are good, and we know that the site's never going to be down. If we have a crazy influx of traffic, which we did in April, we know that the site's going to be able to scale with that, and we're not going to go down. because every single minute that you're down, that's lost revenue. So having a good hosting partner is incredibly important. And the next one on the list, and we'll give a pat on the back here to Ezoic, is advertising. When we started, we were using AdSense on our site, and it was successful. We were getting some good revenue from that, and it allowed us to kind of grow the business and get to that next stage, which was when we got introduced to Ezoic. And Ezoic has just allowed us to scale our business and grow in ways that we hadn't even thought about before, and pairing us up and putting us in place to have really high quality ads on our website is really, really important. So kudos to Ezoic. And like I said early on, they are an extension of our team. We are a small team. We're 3 guys that are trying to grow this brand and grow this website. And without Ezoic and them figuring out some of the advertising things that they figure out whenever something's wrong or whatever, I mean, we don't have the know-how to do those things. And so having that partner, having that advertising partner there as a part of your team is incredibly important. And then going back to good content, often frequency. So the website is constantly getting, content put out there. And the one thing that I used to tell clients with the marketing firm was, you got to think about Google going out and crawling websites. And if they crawl your website on Friday and you have 50 posts, and then they crawl it again on Saturday and you have 50 posts, and then Sunday you have 50 posts, they see that you're not putting out content. And they not only want search results to be relevant, but they want them to be up to date. And they want to see that brands or that websites are putting out frequent content. And so for us, that strategy has changed since we're now all full time with Chrome Unbox. It used to be that a post a day was good. I mean, some days there would be, some weekends, there were maybe a couple days where we didn't even publish. But now that we're all full time, we are consistently putting out anywhere from, 5 to 10 posts a day. And we think that frequency and constantly being in front of people, if you've got a piece of content going out that might not be right for this particular reader that comes to our website all the time, but it might be good for this other reader, you're just expanding, you're casting a larger net. And we think that frequency is incredibly important. I mean, not only just for your brand and having content out there, but also for search engine stuff. So yeah, so that's all the website. I did a little screenshot of the website here so that you can see that. Again, very simple design, and we want it to look kind of googly, so we cover Chromebooks and Chrome OS. I don't even know if I've said that yet. So yeah, we cover Chromebooks and Chrome OS and Google stuff. So we wanted it to kind of look nice and googly. So next thing, YouTube. This has been a slow burn for us. It's been just putting out things consistently and trying to put out really high quality videos has been our game plan this whole time. And from the beginning, we just used the gear that we had. And it started off with Robbie using a Nexus 7 tablet, and then we evolved to a Osmo gimbal. And so back in the day, whenever you had the gimbals with the little camera on them, we were using that for videos. And then we bought a camera off eBay and started using it. And we were using lights that the marketing firm had. And all of this to say, you don't have to have this super elaborate YouTube setup. I mean, I'm in our studio now, and we have evolved, and we have a nice YouTube set up here where we can film videos consistently and put out really high quality content. But in the beginning, we were just scrapping to put out good content. And on YouTube, what that meant for us was having a good narrative. So not focusing so much on all the perfect camera gear and trying to make sure that you have, well, I need this lens and I need this camera because that's what so-and-so is using. Like, if you have a story to tell, and if you have, a narrative that you can present to someone that they might find interesting, for us, it's the future of cloud computing and what we think Chromebooks are going to mean for everyone eventually, and what cloud computing can do for people. So that's been kind of our ongoing message. Yeah, we just do a lot of unboxings, we do reviews, we do feature videos, we do a lot of basic stuff, but through all of that, we're trying to give people informative and beneficial information about cloud computing and about Chromebooks and about the cool things you can do with Chromebooks. So don't focus so much on all the gear. Don't worry about having all the perfect gear. I mean, you can get analysis paralysis and you end up not putting out content because you're so worried about getting the perfect setup and having the perfect gear that you end up just not even putting out content. So just put out content. And for us, the YouTube channel has just been growing slowly. We had a very big influx towards the end of the year as we were approaching 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We did a huge giveaway and that really ramped us up. And we're up to, I think, right around the middle of 135, 134, something like that right now. And that's just become kind of that consistent revenue. As we keep growing that, we're getting AdSense revenue from YouTube, just Google ads that they're showing. But then we also use a lot of affiliate marketing. So we've experimented with some different things. We've worked with different brands over time, different services that are out there that have reached out to us to promote them. And we created a kind of media kit to go with this. And we say, hey, our YouTube videos in ad spot is this, and it's 45 seconds, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen some of these on YouTube. But honestly, we've had a lot of success with NordVPN. They have been a great partner of ours for a couple years now. And we think it's a great product to have. And that we recommend that in a lot of our videos because it's super simple. And we have a template that we use, and it makes it easy to put out those videos, because what we see on YouTube is a lot of our videos aren't subscribers. It's new visitors every single time we put out a video. So having that Nord spot there, it might feel like overkill sometimes putting out those ads on videos, but you got to think it might be a new person that's never seen your video before that might be interested in that. And we just get a commission, affiliate marketing basics on that. So YouTube, again, has been just a slow burn for us. It's been something that we've invested in heavily. We put out 2 videos a week, plus a member, kind of an exclusive behind the scenes video every week as well. That takes up a lot of my time. I'm the one who edits all those, but the team is involved in this. So I think getting your team involved and figuring out different types of content that people can put out, that's certainly been a part of our success. There's people that know about our YouTube channel that may not even know about our website, but it grows the overall brand. So I think video is really cool because you can put it out on YouTube, you can put it on your website, and yeah, it's just an extension of your brand. And people like video. I mean, scroll through Facebook now or scroll through Instagram and see how many videos you see. People like to watch stuff. So YouTube has certainly been a big part of our content strategy. And more recently, we started using, we started producing a weekly podcast called the Chromecast. So a little play on the Chromecast dongle that you get for your TV. So our podcast is called the Chromecast, and we use Anchor, anchor.fm to distribute that podcast. And they actually do dynamic advertising through their platform. So we have a couple partners on there, Spotify. We had Trainual for a little while, and then there's like a generic Anchor ad that's in there. You go and you record your ad and you put it in the ad spot. And if that one's still firing, you're going to keep getting served up that ad for listeners. And if it goes away, it pulls it out and replaces it with something else. So it's pretty awesome. Anchor was, I think, a couple 6 months or so ago, was purchased by Spotify. So Anchor is a great resource, and that's how we put out our podcast. Again, make it simple. We didn't try to go change the game and do all these crazy things. We just found a platform. We found Anchor. I think Gabe actually found it, and we just rolled with it. On our podcast, we highlight our top stories of the weeks, and normally we'll cover 4 or 5, but sometimes we go on a rant and only talk about 1 or 2 things. And then, our setup is super simple. Again, this whole kind of minimally viable product. Oh, here we go. I forgot to click on this one. There's the studio. So that's where I'm at right now. That's what it looks like all done up when we're doing a YouTube video. But here's the podcast setup. And we have some Shure, I can't remember the mic there. They're not the SM58s, but they're similar, a little bit cheaper. But we have some good microphones. The pop filter is really important so that you don't get any pops on your microphone. We have the arms there, and we bought a Behringer USB board. And all of this, I think we ended up spending like $150 or $200. And we have a podcast that I think honestly sounds just as good as any other podcast that I listen to. So we're really proud of that podcast. But again, this is about creating, kind of multiple avenues to get people to your website. And an extension of that is Instagram, or I'm sorry, an extension of that is social media. So you want to create multiple avenues to your site and to your brand. For us, that's YouTube, the website, obviously, and then the podcast. But beyond that, we're pushing out on social media, all of our content, and trying to be as social as we can on these platforms. As we've grown, we just are getting so many questions on social media. And as a small team, it's hard for us to manage all of that. So it can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but because of that, we've really focused in on 3 main platforms: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Facebook, not so much here lately. I know that we probably should do more on Facebook, but we just don't. We probably need to do more with groups and different things, especially for the EDU market. But honestly, it's a matter of resources, and we just don't have the time for it. But we kind of have a slightly different approach for each of these platforms, and it's just kind of different conversations that you're having, different things that you're putting out there. But for us, it's every single article that goes out gets shared on those platforms with a quick little snippet, a little one sentence thing, and put it out there. And then additional to that, we're putting out some other photos and some other videos and trying to do polls here and there and do giveaways and promote those on social media. And just try to create multiple streams to your website, to your brand. The last one there is the newsletter, and this is something that we've really invested in here lately, especially as we've started doing more giveaways. For our giveaways, we use Gleam, so Gleam.io, amazing platform where you can do giveaways, and it's all kind of built into this platform, and they have all the cool features built into that you would want to do for a giveaway. As part of that, we can link our MailChimp account to that, so anybody that signs up, we add them to a newsletter. Group, an audience in MailChimp where we can send those people emails. And we've grown that list substantially, almost as much as our main post notification list that we have. And that's a direct line to somebody. You don't have to worry about them going to Facebook to see it, or you don't have to worry about them, logging into Instagram and scrolling and just so happen to see your post. You're getting direct access to them through a newsletter. You're getting direct access to their inbox. So, not spamming people, but putting out good content there has been really useful for us. So yeah, that's content. Content is king, and that's kind of the setup. That's kind of the structure of things that we've done. Again, a couple of those things you all can take and try to implement those in your business for your website. So now, what was our response to COVID-19? For us, it was about trying to find the middle ground. And the middle ground was basically, hey, we are a website that's about cloud computing and about Chromebooks and Chrome OS and Google. And then we've got this pandemic going on where there's a lot of increased internet traffic because there's a lot of people sitting at home on their phones and on their computers, and they're not able to go out and do as much. So again, it's not like we capitalized on this, but we tried to figure out a kind of intersection of those two things where we could be successful and respond to what was going on. And for us, it was about trying to find that sweet spot. It was about trying to find things that were kind of still true to our niche that we could talk about, things that were still, interests of our audience, things that our audience would still be interested about, and then things that were still industry specific, because the industry was still moving on. There were still things happening in, cloud computing and with Chromebooks. So what was that specifically for us? What's a specific example here? Well, it was a dumpster fire. So let's click in here so you all can see this. Yeah. So there was a dumpster fire, as we put out onto the internet, and it was actually a dumpster fire with Zoom. So I hope they don't shut me down right now. I hope they're not listening. But when Zoom first took off in the early parts of the pandemic, they weren't prepared. It was almost a 3,000% increase in their user base almost overnight, and they were not ready for it. And because of that, there were some pretty severe vulnerabilities and things that were popping up that they weren't ready for, and it gave them some really bad press. But as a cloud computing website and as a website that is trying to tell people about things they can do on their Chromebooks, Zoom was obviously one of those things. So we saw this as the middle ground. And we wrote an article that you can go look at the full title, but it was basically Zoom is a dumpster fire. And we talked about what was going on and some alternatives and things that people could do. We tried to provide some beneficial information to someone who in the middle of this pandemic is trying to do video conferencing, and they're reading about Zoom and all these crazy things that are going on, and they don't know what to do. Well, we wanted to provide them some useful and beneficial information. So we put out this article, and we saw in the month of April a 101% increase in traffic compared to our 6-month average up until that point. So yeah, it was crazy. It just blew up. But it wasn't just that article. There were a couple other articles that we wrote that were about video conferencing, about I think Facebook rolled out some kind of more robust video conferencing stuff. We were writing about Google Meet, because Google Meet had to evolve very quickly to adjust to all of this. And because of that, we ended up with a graph that looked kind of like this. In November, that's whenever we all went full time. And so you can kind of see this trajectory here. We were already kind of moving up, and then because of the pandemic and because of the increased internet traffic and because of a couple articles that we wrote that were this kind of middle ground, we were able to respond to the pandemic and create some pretty substantial results with that. So again, it's kind of like we had all of these things in place, and then we figured out a response to what was going on. It's not like we had some secret formula that all of this started happening and we just turned the switch on this one thing and we were successful. I mean, as I'm sure all of you all know, all of this is such a grind, and we had just been grinding and putting the things in place and building our brand. And then whenever this happened, we were able to respond to it. One other specific example. So I want to give you guys a couple specific things that we did. So the first one was that kind of video conferencing, trying to figure out how we could talk about cloud computing, cloud video conferencing, and how that could relate to Chromebooks and how that could relate to the pandemic and that sort of thing. The next thing we did is in March, I actually wrote an article called 5 Steps to Clean and Disinfect Your Chromebook to Prevent Coronavirus Spread. So at first, we were actually really worried about putting out content that had coronavirus or pandemic in it, because there was some information out there that Google was trying to kind of filter some of those things. And after a couple conversations with the Zoic, we realized that no, it's perfectly fine to do those things. We just can't be putting out figures and saying, you know, X percent of increase in this and blah, blah, blah. We weren't doing any of that. We just wanted to talk about something that was relevant to our audience. So I wrote this article. I thought a lot about the title and the featured image. I really love that photo. We've actually used it for a couple other things. And, you know, we wanted to create something that was informative. I went through and I had to research everything that was going on at that point in time. And it was crazy. There wasn't a lot of information in early March. I think it was March 5th is when I wrote this. And so, you know, I had to do some research and I had to figure out what was going on and what sort of cleaning formula you could use on a Chromebook, and what was acceptable to put on glass, like on the glass on our devices. And that was a piece of content that we put out there that was not only relevant to our audience, but it was informative for anybody who was wondering about if their devices, if their electronics were spreading coronavirus. And then it was evergreen. So it's continued to get views over the course of this pandemic, because it's still relevant. Like, people are still searching for this to figure out if they need to clean their devices and how they can clean their Chromebook properly. So finding, again, it's like we found that middle ground of, hey, here's a Chromebook thing, here's a coronavirus thing. And we kind of found that middle ground to put out some content that wasn't clickbait. It wasn't us trying to take advantage of coronavirus and just write something about coronavirus. It was us writing about what we know and staying true to our niche, but also trying to kind of figure out that middle ground and find something that we could put out that would be informative for our audience. So there it is. So that was our response to COVID-19, what we did. Again, we had these things in place already. We were already doing a lot of these things. We didn't have some secret formula where we just flipped a switch and we were super successful during this time. We had already been doing a lot of these things. We had put a lot of these things in place. But then as all of this started happening, we were strategic about the couple pieces of content that we were putting out that were about coronavirus, but were also still true to our industry and what was happening. So all of that to say, what should you all do? You listen to all this, that was a lot of information. What do you need to do? Well, I think there's a couple of those specifics that you can do about growing your brand, doing things like a YouTube channel or a podcast, and finding ways to create more content around your brand rather than just written articles. But there's all these different things. There's all these pieces that you need to have in place. For us, it has been those things. It's been Google Discover. It's been hosting. It's been consistency. For this pandemic, it's been finding that middle ground, and it's about staying true to our audience and developing our audience, or not developing, but maintaining our audience and staying engaged with our audience, and not just dropping out of the scene, because it's easy to get overwhelmed during all of this stuff and just feel like, you know, you just want to throw in the towel and kind of call it quits, or maybe you're not getting the same traffic that you were and you're getting discouraged. You know, we just kind of had to put our nose down and keep doing what we were doing. And so again, it's like, you know, I think for anybody that's listening that is wondering, hey, I hear you, here's all these things, like, what do I go do? I think you can get a couple of those things in place, and you can figure out maybe a middle ground of things that are going on in the world with the pandemic, and then your content. So if you could do all those things, you can be successful. So let's hop over to some Q&A. Let me go back here. Hope that was helpful, guys. I really hope that that was informative and that you all got something out of that. But now we want to take some time to answer some questions.
All right, I'm back to kind of help out with some of those questions. So while you folks are entering your questions into the Q&A feature, I just want to make a couple announcements. The first one is that at every session, we are giving away what we are calling a publisher stimulus. So Carl Anthony, you are the winner for this session. So I'll be in touch with you after the session. And we will be distributing those at the end of the week once all the sessions are over. And then another announcement is that just really quickly, if you are curious about learning more about Ezoic or getting started with Ezoic, our CMO, Tyler Bishop, is going to be doing a Q&A today at 4 o'clock. So you can go to pubtelligence.ezoic.com to register for that. So it looks like we do have one question. First off, what type of software are you using to show your slides? They're really cool.
Yeah. So this is all through Prezi. If you're familiar with Prezi, they are an awesome kind of alternative to Google Slides or PowerPoint. But because of all the pandemic stuff, they've introduced this like live presentation thing where you can do the webcam with your presentation. So it's called Prezi Video. If you go make an account on Prezi, and if you create your slide, you have to create it as one of like the video slides so that it creates a transparent background with it. But you can go in and create it, and then you go up to present and then say go live, and you can connect it to Zoom. So yeah.
All right. The next question we have is about AMP. So is there any issue about using AMP because it's basically being hosted by Google?
We've not had any issue with that necessarily. There are some very unique struggles with AMP.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it. And you learn those as time goes by. But you know, one of the problematic things I would say about AMP is that Google caches all of your data for that particular article in their servers. And so what that means is we have to take great care when we go to publish an article. We're putting out a lot of content. It's easy to get too quick, move too fast, and publish something. You have a misspelled word in a title. You left out a piece of information. You put the wrong image in, whatever the case may be, or you have some grammar mistakes, whatever. With AMP, it's just not as simple as going, hey, let me change this, hit save, and now everyone's going to see that.
Yeah.
Because it's cached, so they're going to see that version that you first put out. So that's been one issue. And then obviously when you're doing any kind of web development or design work, AMP is a whole separate piece versus your site in most instances for most users. So you're going to end up having your regular version, and then we call all the time, well, is that going to work in AMP? So
yeah. What's that going to look like in AMP? How is that video going to work in AMP? You know,
and there's tons of stuff that the AMP version does not bring over. It just doesn't work. And Ezoic ads even have to fire differently and do different things to work inside that AMP, a very limited AMP framework. And so keeping all that stuff in mind, as long as you keep it in front of you and it becomes part of your habit as you create content, it's not problematic. It's just limiting. And if you don't know of those limitations, you don't make proper precautions for those limitations, then you can run into some issues because it's a constant thing. When Joe talked about Search Console, I mean, we're collectively in the Search Console every day.
Every day. Yeah, and I think another important thing, if you're not using an AMP version of your site, Joe mentioned AMP for WP. We use a lot of their products, and they have really good support. And if you have issues, they're really good about getting in there and helping you fix them. If you're considering AMP, I would say go for it. I think Robbie would agree, just for SEO standpoint, discoverability. It will increase your traffic if you're getting into Discover with those AMP articles. Don't build your entire site around an AMP site, though. Don't let your site hinge on that. I should say you could spend months and months and months hand building an AMP site, but Google's starting to lend weight to non-AMP sites as well.
Right.
So
Constantly evolving.
5 years down the road, AMP may not matter, and as long as you have a mobile friendly site, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And then if you have to go in on the back end and rip out all of that AMP structure, it's going
to be a lot of work.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of pain and a lot of Search Console errors and all that stuff.
And that's why we've used AMP for WP as that solution for us.
We try to keep the plugins pretty lean on our
Mhm.
site, but that's one that has definitely they have an entire catalog of AMP friendly, AMP oriented plugins, and they're good. So
To kind of follow up on AMP, someone asked, doesn't AMP affect your affiliate revenues?
It affects all revenues.
Yeah.
Negatively.
absolutely.
Yeah. So unfortunately, AMP causes you to live a little bit more by volume than by quality, and we don't love that. And I don't make any bones about the fact that I don't like the necessity of having to deal with that. But there are certain things that more website volume, as far as visitors, gives you the ability to do. When we start talking about, if you want to talk about affiliate revenue, not really. It doesn't really hurt affiliate revenue at all. It actually only helps because traffic, when you're talking about affiliate stuff like Amazon, or if we're reselling Nord, or we have a custom sponsor, or whatever the case may be, the more eyes that see that, the better. We just have to code it in particular ways where it works in AMP. As far as dynamic advertising, like Ezoic advertising, yes, we see a hit on that sort of revenue because there are so many limitations to the way that you can advertise in AMP. There's only so many things you can do. So
yeah, because with most of our affiliate stuff, we're linking to, we have an external shop, and then we have a couple of affiliate platforms. We avoid using iframes and stuff like that.
We're linking over to everything. Yeah.
We try not to use anything in our main site's content that won't translate over to AMP. And I think if that's what you're asking, we just don't use stuff that doesn't translate to AMP. So
and again, that just goes back to that idea of, if you're going to use AMP and leverage AMP, you have to consider AMP all the time. Like, you just have to baby this whole thing. And so if the day comes that it goes away, I won't be that sad about it.
No, because the site's really nice on mobile without it. So.
And that's why also we've kind of shifted our strategy. And again, this is partially thanks to a conversation that we had with Tyler from Ezoic, trying to figure out how to diversify our content a little bit more and use that newsletter and use social media and use giveaways as a non-AMP, traffic to our site, and trying to get more people on our mobile version of our site as opposed to the AMP side. It's been a gift and a curse, like Robbie said. It's like it's given us a ton of volume, which has been great because it's more eyeballs on our content. It's more people looking at Chrome Unboxed, which is great, and again, clicking on affiliate stuff or seeing a banner ad that we have up top. So yeah, I mean, it's been a gift and a curse, but it's been a big part of our success.
I think a good follow-up question to that is, Ivana asked, can you share some specific ways that you've worked with Ezoic? In what ways did we help you?
Yeah, I think early on, it was just figuring out how to get all the ads on the site. I mean, it was like super hands-on. I remember.
Yeah, there was a ton of help. So onboarding is great. It was great back then. I know you're all's, it's weird because we're talking to a group.
Yeah,
let's say you'll see the third person. Ezoic's process for getting new clients kind of onboarded and having more hands-on time with us has gotten a lot better. I think probably in just the last year. I know that there's been some structural changes from what we understand about the way that like your all's client relation stuff works, and we've seen the benefit of that. Like we've had a lot of hands-on help when issues arise. Like we don't have to feel shy about saying, "Hey, this isn't working," or "This seems odd,"
or "This is broken."
You look at it, you know? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's like, yeah, that has nothing to do with Ezoic, and we tried anyway. But the ability to have issues and have your all's or have Ezoic's dev team kind of look into those things has been insanely helpful over the course, especially the last year. Like we've leaned on Ezoic a lot. And
specifically the last the last year, as we've gone full time with this, we've got for us, I'm not sure that this is true for all publishers, but for us, we have a dedicated meeting with an Ezoic rep where we get to dig into a lot of the big data analytics, which have been incredibly useful to us, being able to see what sort of content, like length of articles that are generating the most revenue, being able to really dig in to see what people are searching for and what sort of content is making us money at the end of the day. So I think the big data analytics is a big distinguisher for Ezoic. I mean, obviously AdSense has its stuff, but as far as other vendors that are out there, I mean, I think big data analytics with Ezoic is a huge value to all publishers.
Wow. And everybody, we did not ask them to say this, but that is music to at least my ears. One other question is, how did you go about investing in your studio infrastructure?
Yeah, I guess I can take that one, huh? It's kind of been, it's evolved. It's just been like one thing after another. So my background is in video. So with the marketing firm we were with, I was doing a lot of the video work and managing video projects. And so I've always been super interested in gear. I love gear and digging in and figuring out all the new cameras that are coming out and all this sort of stuff. But like I said in my presentation, not overanalyzing it, using the gear that we had and figuring out how to create good videos. So it started with a Sony A6000, A65,000. Which one is that one?
6,000.
6,000. So we bought it off eBay for like $500 or something. We bought a lens for it and we invested in a decent camera, but really good audio. We got a good microphone and started using really good. We had a lapel mic at first, and then we upgraded to it's right up here. We upgraded to like a boom mic where we can get it a lot closer and it creates kind of more of a natural sound. But we just reinvested the money that we were making through the YouTube channel. As we were growing the YouTube channel, we would reinvest, and it started with getting some different lights. And whenever we went full time, like I said, we had been using some of the gear from the marketing firm. So when we went full time, we had to kind of reinvest in some stuff and get some new things. For us, a really good light. We have the light actually turned on right now. There's a company called Godox that creates these really nice lights that are a quarter of the price of some of the really expensive YouTuber lights, the aperture lights that you see people using all the time. So we got the light, and then it was like we got the microphone, and then we had some people send us some monitors that we use. So it's just kind of evolved over time. It hasn't been like, hey, we're gonna go spend all this money to build this perfect studio. Even the studio that we're in right now, whenever we first started filming in here, the other company still had some stuff in here. So we were kind of making it work in the space, and then they moved out. So we took over the studio and we just kind of started adding little stuff here and there. And hey, what if we add this light here? What would that look like as a kind of backdrop light? Or what if we added these blankets here? We have moving blankets everywhere in here to help dampen. We put up a backdrop, it's like, it's just kind of evolved over time. But I think for us, the main thing was a good camera. We upgraded to the A6500, which does 4K. So we upgraded the camera, and then we bought some really nice lenses. We ended up getting some prime lenses, some Zeiss lenses that are really nice, and then a really good microphone and a good light. I think those are like the four main things. If you can have decent video, like good quality video that looks good, really good audio, and then well lit. If you have a well lit scene, it's gonna look way better than some dark, dingy basement looking shot. So,
and I will say too, like I want to add that Joe said we've kind of changed this and moved things as we've gone, and that's just kind of the theme of everything that we've done, really. I mean, so it's a matter of allowing yourself to make those mistakes or make those shortcomings. Like we'll look back at videos we did 2 or 3 years ago, and you kind of smile a little bit, but you realize like, we needed to do that in order to figure out, oh, well, that lighting's weird, or well, that setting's strange, or if we had that lens maybe, and it's these iterations that you make over time that help you get to where you want to be. And I still think we'll look back at the stuff we're making right now
and be like, oh, why were we doing that?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of it is we all have our favorite YouTubers that we watch and everything. It's, if you have a studio set up, find the people that you like watching and figure out what it is you like about it. And then just find a way to do it. You can make cheap lighting with some crepe paper and stuff like that. You can get cheap LED lights, things to reproduce the stuff that you like to see in the video. And then as it evolves, start investing more and more where you can.
Yep. Tyler said, what's next? I think the next thing for us will be a new light, and I think we actually might. I said this is a cheap alternative to Aperture, but we might get an Aperture light, a big one. I've been doing a lot of research about color science and CRI numbers and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we might invest in a nicer big light that we'll use as our key light. But I think the next thing would be a new camera, probably a new camera body. Red Camera, who a lot of YouTubers use, just put out a new camera that I'm really interested in. But it's thousands of dollars, and it would be an investment. It'd be a very big investment for us. So
Yeah, that all really kind of resonates with me, because when Tyler and I first started recording the Publisher Lab podcast, we didn't have mic stands. We were using like cardboard boxes just to get mics like face level, and slowly over time, once things started growing, then we started buying more. But as a marketer, the fake it till you make it kind of
exactly.
Really
Yeah, I mean, we were doing the podcast at Joe's house, and we would literally have blankets around us. And it was hot. There was no
It was
air.
awful.
And we had one. What was it? Was it the
blue
Yeti? The Yeti mic.
It was
sitting in
so
the middle.
bad.
It was so bad. But it's where we were.
But
so.
we didn't let our resources hold us back. We just started putting out content. Like, that's the most important thing. Again, it's like, use the gear that you have and don't let that hold you back, because it's easy when you're doing something new that you don't really want to do, that you're scared about doing. It's easy to be like, well, no, I got to get that. I have to get that new microphone before I can do the podcast. It's like, no, you don't. You can do a podcast with your phone. Like
they always say, if you wait until you're ready, you'll never be ready. And it's true. It's very, very true for what we do here.
Yep.
We have another question from Ivana. What is your process or system for putting out so much content?
working a lot. No, we have a good balance. I mean, we do. As we've gone full time doing this, we talk all the time. It's like, this doesn't feel like a job some days, and I think that's going to kind of lead into the answer to this question. What we do is honestly our hobby. I mean, this is what we were doing for fun as a side hustle, and we've just built it into this crazy thing. I think we've gotten better as we've gone full time of like setting goals and having a couple strategies for how we're going to put out content. But I mean, these guys can talk more about this, but they just kill it every day. Like, they sit down, they normally have an article out by the time I even roll into the office. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about writing about things that you care about and that you're genuinely interested in, so that it's easy to crank out content, but then also just having a couple goals of numbers that you want to hit for the week. And then just prioritizing the time. We know that Tuesday, Thursdays, we film. We know that Friday we podcast at 10 o'clock in the morning. We know that on the weekends, this is kind of generally how we do things. Like, just, it's evolved over time. But I mean, as far as written content, which is our number one piece of content, I'll let these guys talk more about that. I've talked too much.
We're still evolving a strategy, to be honest with you, as far as an editorial calendar of how to, because the way that we cover, especially stuff on the website, is so dynamic. It's really hard to plan ahead too far. And anybody that does publishing that has anything to do with any kind of late breaking news cycle, you feel the pain of that, of realizing it's really more about just being on your toes all the time. And again, all of this evolved out of scratching our own itch. So we were already looking up this stuff anyway. Our news feeds are collectively full of Google oriented news anyway. So we all end up seeing the same stuff. Like, we'll throw something in a shared chat, did you see this? And 9 times out of 10, all three of us have already seen it. We just didn't share it first or whatever. And so it's not so much a matter of creating a strategy. It's realizing that we genuinely are interested and excited about the platform that we talk about. And I don't know personally how to do this job aside from that. Like, we've had people say, well, are you going to start up an Apple blog? And like, no offense, we're recording this right now on a MacBook. I don't hate Apple products, but I also don't have any kind of passion for them. And so,
finding the thing,
like, I don't know how I would do that.
Like,
if
it was just like a 9-to-5 grind, and I had a beat that I was covering, like, it would. Yeah,
that wouldn't be me.
We're just too entrepreneurial for that, I think. Like, right. It wouldn't work.
I think with the editorial calendar and writing, I think you need to get some clear goals in place. You
Mhm.
know, do you have a goal to scale your website to something bigger than what it is? Because we know where we're at, and we've sat down multiple times and crunch numbers. This is how much content we need to put out to be at this point.
Mhm.
And this is how much we're going to have to put out to rise to the next level.
Mhm.
And that does mean some days putting out fluff content, or that does mean writing an article you don't want to, because it's something that I wrote a Minecraft article just this morning, right before this started. I didn't want to. I don't care about Minecraft, but it had something to do with Chromebooks, and it's a hot
relevant,
subject, and it's relevant, so I wrote it, and it means doing that. But for the most part, if you're not passionate about your content on the whole, then it might be time to realign your content strategy. Honestly,
But again, going back to some of the stuff with big data analytics, being able to go in and see some very granular revenue numbers and be able to tie that to our content to then say, all right, we have X number of page views and it's generated X number or X dollars of revenue. If we know that our goal is this, we know we need to write this amount of articles. I mean, and you could go through and obviously like calculate all this just by, adding up, your total revenue. But I think Zoic's helped us to kind of become more and more focused on what we're covering.
All right, folks. Well, it's just about 11 o'clock now. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us today. Everyone from Chrome Unboxed, thank you so much for your presentation. I know you set the bar really high when you first started. You said it was going to be the best presentation so far, but I honestly think you surpassed that.
Oh, excellent.
So
excellent.
I
That's
do
great.
really want to thank you for joining us today. And for those of you who are watching, we've got a couple more sessions going on this afternoon. So if you want to get more info on that, you can go to pubtelligence.ezoic.com. All right, everyone, take care.